All right, so let's talk about sensitivity, this little green dial here in the upper corner. And this one is numbered from 1 all the way up to 20, and then there's the little letter F right at the very end, past 20. And there's a lot of different ways to think about this. Everyone's going to have their own way of remembering it, but here's the idea. Right now, with this set at 1, means that this pacemaker will sense almost any kind of electricity coming from the patient, whether it's a P wave or even if it's just, even muscle electricity might be enough to set this off. Now, if I turn it all the way up to 20, if I'm sitting at 20, that basically means I've raised the bar, so to speak. So instead of sitting at 1, which is really close to the isoelectric line where it senses everything and therefore does not fire very much, when I turn it up to 20, I've raised the bar so high that this machine really won't even sense any native electrical activity from that heart, which means it'll basically fire almost all the time because nothing that the patient is doing on their own is going to be good enough to inhibit this pacemaker. If I turn it all the way to F, that actually just takes it to a whole nother level that says we're not even going to try to do sensing, we're just going to go 100% pure AV, asynchronous pacing all the time and not even mess with it. Sorry, just ventricle pacing, not AV sensing, or not AV pacing. So what do we do? Basically the idea is this. If you start low, you really shouldn't see anything at all. And this little light above here that says sense right in the center should actually glow green when it senses something coming from the patient. So with it set to 1, that should really be going off all the time. And now as I turn it up, there should be less sensing, as in it's not seeing as much because I'm raising the bar. As I continue to go up, I'll get to a point where, let's just say it's right here between 5 and 10. Now all of a sudden, I'm not getting that green light anymore at all. That tells me I've gotten to the point where I've raised the bar too high, and now this machine isn't sensing those really tall, sharp QRSs. So I know if I go past 5, that's too much. So I'm going to go ahead and dial it closer to 5, maybe 2.5, maybe 4. And then all of a sudden, if I start getting these little green lights again, in conjunction with the patient's natural beats, I'll know that I've set that about where I want it to go. Now, in order to stay safe, to make sure that there's a margin for error, we're going to go ahead and take whatever this is and reduce it by half. So if I measured it out to be 4 as the sensitivity threshold, and that's really what all this is, we're just looking at the threshold, I'm going to turn this down to 2. So that means if 4 is the very top end, just the threshold itself, if I lower it to 2, that means I'm guaranteed to sense those QRSs, but I should be high enough that like T waves and P waves shouldn't get sensed by this device. And so 2 would be my sensitivity setting, however my threshold was 4. And that's essentially how that portion of itself works.